Thank you so much, Sabina, and thank you so much for staying on for the panel. Really, really appreciate that. So,
No problem.
discussions, and in the panel, we're going to have Dr. Sabina Brennan staying with us. We're having Victoria Burnip, who's just joined, Amanda Graham, and Stephen van der Minne. I can't see Amanda though. But just briefly to introduce Victoria and Stephen.
I'm here too as well.
Excellent, Amanda. Excellent. Thank you. So Victoria is a new minority health entrepreneur and advocate for neurodiversity and social equity. She's in the country lead for ION and regional lead for Europe, country lead for UK. Victoria has spent her career working with founding and leading charities and social enterprises such as Age UK, Unforgettable Experiences, and Age Concern. And Amanda Graham, welcome Amanda. Past work including writing 23 EPAs of comedy TV as seen on Apple TV, BBC, and script editing and glossing over 100 scripts and pitch decks. Amanda is also a disability consultant for television programming and works with the Institute of Neurodiversity in Geneva, hosting their podcast Neurodisruptors. And Stephen, welcome Stephen, is a lecturer and researcher exploring what happens when people notice things that organizations are not yet ready to see. His work focuses on moments of misfit, situations in which people are formally welcome, but systems lack the capacity to work with what they bring. So very much welcome all of you to this. I have prepared a few questions to bring after we now have listened to the two speakers that we have had. And I'm just going to sort of ask the questions and have all of you talking to them, if that's okay. So, on the first one I'd like us to discuss is, many people describe ageism as the last socially acceptable prejudice. Why do you think society still struggles to value older people, especially older neurodivergent people? And anyone would put a hand up and say, I'll start with that one. Otherwise, I'll just pick one of you. Amanda, you're sitting on my screen as a big picture, so I'm going to pick you, if that's okay.
Thanks, Charlotte, and thanks. It's so nice to be here. So I really appreciate it. That is the $1 million question. I'm not quite sure why ageism exists. Although having said that, when I was younger, when I would look at older people, I would think the same thing. Not want to be around them socially or value their opinions or whatever else. So it just could be the inexperience of youth. I mean, it really depends on, who's being ageist in the first place. I think another problem is certainly with my parents and my grandparents' generation, there was a general, not everyone, but a general refusal to keep up with the times and keep up with what was going on. And I would hear a lot of, no, I'm too old for that. So I think it kind of goes both ways. But it's definitely an issue that needs to be tackled because we all deal with it eventually.
Which is why we're having this. We really felt it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
To the table to say, no, we are actually here. We're like a hidden,
absolutely
generation. So
I am allowed to dive in here, Charlotte.
Yes. Thank you. I was looking for you. I saw the hand was up and then you scrolled out.
It's okay. I am.
And then after you, Stephen. Thank you.
I again wonder if it depends on where it's not always ageism from younger generations, and I know I'm slightly in the middle now, but I did make a comment in the chat about, I remember working at I'm not going to name the aging charities, but I remember working for a very prominent aging charity, being in my early 20s and being so proud that I'd organised this older people's festival. And at the time, when I look back now, I realise that was ageism. And this older people's festival, I remember being so proud and going home with my parents. And my parents looked at me with horror because it was targeted at anyone over 50. And now that I'm in my mid 40s, I realise, oh my God, I'm 5 years off that number. And is it really, fair for everyone to be lumped in a bracket as over 55, when we all have such unique and different experiences? And I think you've got to take cultures into that too, because there's some cultures and countries around the world that actually do aging very well, very gracefully, have, aging blue zones, as they call them, have family members that support no matter what age everyone takes, a role in supporting that family member. And I think, not to speak ill of the the Brits, but I don't know whether that's universally, the way it is here with our culture. I know, especially in the northeast of England, a lot of older adults, well, just adults in general, a lot of people migrate south for work, and so therefore don't have their families as much around them. So, again, going back to Amanda's point, it depends on the people, and I think there's multiple variations in what creates ageism.
Thank you. Thank you for that input. I'm from Denmark originally, and I can't say that we have been very good in having the whole sort of different generations inclusion and being together. And I don't, Stephen is from Holland, so he might be able to talk about that aspect as well, because in Denmark, it became very much, let's make everybody independent and have support from the government to be independent and not need anyone. But actually, we need each other, right? And that's just not valued enough in the Western world. But luckily it is in other countries around the world. So Stephen, over to you.
Thank you. Well, ageism, what I see is it's not about age. It is about being different. When I was 20, I was too young. Now I'm 64, and now I'm a bit old, according to some people. When I was 40, I should be somewhere in the middle, but I behaved like someone of 20, 25, so I was still too young. Age is a label that is quite easy to stick onto someone. And it is a, relatively innocent label, since age isn't a diagnosis, it just happens to all of us.
Yeah.
Well, what I discovered is that what they usually attribute to age is something different. They can't tell. They see the age, so they make the connection. It is because of their age, and not because of someone who may have ADHD or autism or whatever. What kind of neurodivergent traits they have? Yeah. That's how I see it.
So we get age override as well as we get autism override when we're younger, right? Everything that's wrong with us is because of our autism now. So, and then later everything that's wrong with us is because of our age. It's not very helpful as such. So thank you so much, Stephen. Sabina.
Yeah, so I just kind of hop in with a neuroscience perspective. So the brain categorizes quickly, and that's kind of an efficient way to decide whether someone is part of your group or an out group or an enemy or familiar or unfamiliar. That helps us assess safety, risk. Are they like me? Are they not like me? So that's one of our unconscious biases. So we're dealing with that, as a young person, you would categorize an old person as different from you. And that's why it's really, really important that we speak about biases, because they are unconscious and they serve a purpose. If we didn't use those heuristics as human being, our brain would be just overloaded, constantly trying to assess the differences. But what we have to do, the same as we do with racism, because again, an unconscious bias would see someone of a different color to you as other than you. We actually have to engage our conscious brain, our thinking brain, and go, oh, that's just a little bias, a little shortcut of my brain. That person is actually really a person, not something totally different from me. And then also the brain acts like a prediction machine. It's constantly filling in gaps about what might happen next. And that is informed by our experience, our life experience, but also by those heuristics, by those biases. So our brain is filling in those gaps. So essentially, really, it is a case of us having to work. It's making conscious effort and conscious thought uses up more energy than those unconscious ones. That's why the brain has that capacity. So we actually have to work harder to make sure we're not ageist or racist or sexist. and it requires effort. And then to put on top of that, then there's our cultural, our cultural and societal things. And I saw someone popped in a chat, the Industrial Revolution, and there's various things that changed when that came about as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, and that really leads quite well into the next question I'd love us to consider between us. So that's how ageism intersect with neurodivergence differently from other forms of discrimination or exclusion, because currently they basically believe we don't exist as older people, but still something will come in. How does that intersect ageism and neurodivergence together? Victoria?
I'll happily jump on this one. I think it's very different. It's very difficult when, as a neurodivergent adult myself, everything is reliant on a medical model as to how you're labelled with that criteria. And so this medical model is then applied. And so you've kind of then got, when you're approaching GPs with menopausal traits, as I've experienced recently, the brain fog and everything, then people then can't differentiate whether it's the neurodiversity or the autism. So that kind of gives a bit of a compounding effect from that perspective. So I think you're kind of facing a double whammy. One, the world doesn't think you exist because of the medical models that have been put in place that diagnosed and identified people in the first place. But then second to that, how do you then differentiate whether it's your ADHD, your autism, or your dyspraxia or dyslexia causing these moments that actually can create quite a difficult impact on your day-to-day, standard of living or your quality of life. And then I think it's even further compounded if you throw in other neurodegenerative diseases which show similar cognitive traits. The research shows that I believe ADHD is more, people with ADHD are more likely to then have dementia. So dementia is surging rapidly in the world right now, 55 million estimated globally. Are we saying that maybe it's because we haven't diagnosed people who are aging, that maybe it's not dementia at all, and that 55 million that's predicted could actually be a larger portion of neurodiverse adults? So it's a very complicated, a big question to answer, but that's part of my thinking around it.
Good thinking. Let's just throw all that out there. I mean, of course, in addition to that, there is, built up trauma over a lifetime, which most neurominority people I speak to have built up long-term trauma and stress, and that stress can lead to adrenal dysregulation. And if you get significant adrenal dysregulation, it feels like you're being drugged all the time. Your body is physically drugging itself. And for some, that feels like someone else is drugging them because we don't talk enough and the doctors won't talk to us about it or accept it. I have come across a couple of people that ended up getting into mental health institutions against their will because they seemed to be paranoid, but actually it was adrenal dysregulation. And stuff like that is just not understood enough. And for the entire neurominority community, because we are under heightened stress throughout our life, we are more likely to develop something like that because of the constant cortisol that we would all experience. So that's nothing to put out there, but Sabina.
Sorry, yeah, I just want to address that issue about ADHD as a risk factor for dementia. There's very little research in that regard. There may be, a slightly elevated risk, and that's not to say that it's the ADHD, as you've just touched on, factors like stress, social isolation. We know for sure that 40% of all cases of Alzheimer's disease are attributable to 12 modifiable risk factors, and ADHD is not in there, in any shape, make or form. There's plenty of lifestyle factors that influence or increase our risk for developing dementia, and kind of focusing on those. I'm always wary of, smaller studies being quoted, because people seem to latch on them and newspapers kind of quote them. So I would stick with things like, this is the Lancet journal every few years, looks at the relationship between what we call modifiable risk factors. Sorry, just kind of.
No.
Can I just address that? Also, though, that I am working in innovation and research, Sabina, and I have seen research studies being applied in practice currently that are looking at that, which can see some of the links. So I didn't mean to under
With
my banner.
ADHD. Yes, but there's not very many, not on the level that we're talking about. And I think it's important not to say that ADHD turns into, or becomes dementia. I mean, we know that it quite possibly could be the other risk factors. I mean, it's like people say, there's my parents had dementia, therefore I'm going to get dementia. Look, there is a genetic element, but the risk is really small compared to the risk associated with modifiable risk factors. But I think something that was said earlier in a talk, which I think really sparked me in terms of relevance, is, for example, the biggest risk factor, modifiable risk factor, is age-related hearing loss. Surprisingly, right? And one of the reasons for that, we think, is that the additional strain and cognitive load on the brain to have to put into trying to hear and interpret takes away resources from other areas of your brain, that they then may leave you vulnerable. And it was just earlier when the first speaker was talking about autism and the cognitive load of trying to mask and using up energy that actually really has been taken away from aspects that then might in turn contribute to risk. Do you see what I'm kind of getting at? Rather than I'm always afraid of that saying autism. If you have autism, you'll get Alzheimer's. If you have ADHD, you'll get Alzheimer's, when we know there's other factors that are related to those.
I agree. There's a lot of other factors. I wasn't saying that if you had ADHD, just to clarify, that you would get dementia. I'm saying the risk factor is higher, and there's a lot of overlap between how cognitive function performs. Whether you've got varying different conditions, it still impacts your day-to-day living in very similar ways, whether it's neurodevelopmental or neurodegenerative. I was just saying there's merely a link with how that happens in day-to-day activity.
Thank you so much. Isn't it that heightened stress is one of the 12 risk factors, Sabina? I think it is, because stress in life certainly does affect us in significant ways.
Yeah, no, actually, a lot of the risk factors are around cardiovascular health, believe it or not, because your brain needs a healthy body. Depression is in there, social isolation is in there. I don't think stress is actually in there, but I mean, we know that stress contributes to other factors that.
Yeah. Exactly, but that could be why maybe it would be heightened with many neurodivergent people.
That's really it.
We live under constant heightened stress.
Yeah, stress actually causes, it inhibits neuroplasticity in areas of the brain that are relevant to memory function. So, yeah.
So, anyone else? Amanda, Stephen?
Well, just a quick observation. What I heard Sabina tell, it reminds me of a theory, the HPA loop. That means it's hard to pronounce, but there are connections within the body that strengthen that work like an escalator, and how do you call it? It's an escalation of stress and strain. Sorry, there were Latin names, but there is a body system that enhances stress, and it's in fact it's a loop, and we don't usually. And if you're masking. That's what I want to say. If the constant need of masking takes a lot of energy, and energy may be stressful, causing strain, and that may deteriorate the body and the mind.
I think we were saying the same thing, and I think you were looking for the HPA axis.
Yes.
And there's a switch off loop, and there's nothing wrong with stress. You need stress to just survive life. However, when it's poorly managed and it's chronic, as it could be if someone is chronically under stress to feel that they have to mask or whatever, that is very detrimental, not just to how your brain functions, but to the structure of your brain. Yes.
Thank you very much for that input. Any other thoughts? Amanda, do you have any other thoughts around the intersection with neurodivergence and ageism?
In terms of with Alzheimer's and dementia in general,
Just in terms of how does it intersect differently from other forms of discrimination or exclusions? What's the difference like with ageism and neurodiversity as opposed to ageism and ethnicity? Or
I think well, that's such a good question. I think what it forces us first of all to go to extraordinary lengths to not only survive but to thrive with both of them at the same time. And I you know, and I'm coming at this panel from lived experience as an ADHD writer and public speaker. But one of the things that I was forced to do because of ageism, I'm in the TV and film industry, so you are geriatric once you hit 40, right? So I had that. And then when I was diagnosed at 48 years old, I came out immediately and all the work dried up immediately. And so what I was forced to do was go through a period of instability for a long time, but I built my own world. Like I figured out what it was that I could do that was bias proof. Which I don't know if that is possible, but as close as possible as we could get. And that was extremely stressful. But what I decided to do was to mask less and find the people who valued the insight I had as an older person. I think a lot of us, we hit 45, we hit 50, and we go for the same jobs we always went for in the past. And then we don't understand why we don't get them. What nobody tells us is that actually it's time to be the mentor. It's time to be the teacher. And so I think graduating and having enough faith in yourself to kind of acknowledge that we can, that's what we really should be doing. That really helped. Like I said, I had a period of serious instability while I was building my reputation, figuring out what I could teach, and doing the public speaker thing. And then on the TV writing side of things, what I decided to do was to stop trying to fit in with the way that things were and find the people and the creatives who I belong to instead of fitting in with. And when I found the people who got where I was coming from and why writing on my, like the way that I write, it's very highly sensory. It's very character led. And that's the kind of stuff that people who are neurotypicals might struggle with. But that comes to me with neurodivergence. I always joke that I am a robot. And so, I observe you humans, and so I'm able to write you very well. So I think maybe using those types of factors can give us an opportunity to build the type of world that we want and spend our time with the people who we haven't got to justify ourselves with all the time.
And get around the biases in the places where they're too much. But it can be difficult to reinvent yourself later. But so I was lucky enough to 20 years ago fall into sort of governance and serving on boards. And actually, the older you are, the better it seems to be. So, because when I was, 42, they were like, "You're too young to be on boards." I said, "Well, I'm here." So, right. And now at 62, I'm still young, which is scary, but it's also interesting. So but really, I think we should have many more older, I'm not sure we should be using the word old, but later generation influencers. This is a job in itself today, right? Influencers who actually, we have wisdom. We've lived for so long. I worked for 44 years. I've got quite a lot to tell, and we all have a lot to bring. That, that young people, there are many young people who have no grandparents, maybe no parents, but who would love to be able to ask someone, what's your experience with this? And you can actually share. So I think there's some new jobs we could take on in the new world of influencers and all of this stuff. I mean, Elon Musk's mom is a major influencer, maybe because of her son, I don't know, or blend, but she's got over 10 million, followers talking about, I don't know, I haven't actually looked. I just heard it from someone who's her agent. Interestingly, that exists again. Anyway, so I have another question around the biggest myth about aging and neurodivergence that continue to shape healthcare, employment, and public attitudes. I mean, one of the reasons why this really came onto the table was because we had a lot of noise coming out from America about older autistic people not existing because someone couldn't see them in the mall. And that really just kicked me off so hard. I don't know why I was so triggered. And I was like, why? So who is it you want to see in the mall, and what do you think they look like? Because when I say I'm autistic, people go, "Oh, but you don't look autistic." It's like, talk to me about what autistic looks like, right? And we all get it. So many of us get that. And then they realize that was a stupid comment, right? But not until after it has already come out. Or they say, "I'm so sorry." I was like, "Why are you sorry? I'm okay." So all of that always also shows the biases that everyone has, not just about being older, but also about our neurotypes, right? And we have to somehow push through that together, together and with allies who gets us, and therefore being able to push through. But what I'd love to talk about here is, what are the biggest myths that each one of you have sort of experienced around aging and neurodivergence that will shape the healthcare, employment, and public attitudes? One of them I found was, you don't look autistic. I mean, could we just move beyond that one, please? Anyone? Sorry, I
think
It's gone.
I-
You jump in, Amanda.
no, I was going to say, go ahead after you, Victoria.
I want to say it. It's all right.
Okay. I was going to say that besides the you don't look autistic thing, which I always say, do you want me to perform an autism for you? That seems to work. But yeah. But I think that a big one is that meeting us in terms of working with not limitations, but the extra time we might need or whatever is a disadvantage to the person who's working with us. It works like in the TV industry. People are, concerned when you're a writer that you're not going to be able to make it through a day in the writer's room, or that you're not going to be able to handle the noise or whatever on set. And there's like just all of those types of things. And what isn't emphasized is the things that we bring that other people who aren't neurodivergent can't bring. And so for me, it's like about flipping that script. I'm a big believer in framing things in the right way. And I'm a big believer in making sure that people understand what's in it for them if they listen to older people and if they listen to people who are neurodivergent and work with them. So I think that's the big one for me, at least in my personal experience and the people I work with.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Any other thoughts from anyone? Now Victoria, no, Stephen.
Sorry,
Yeah.
perhaps it's fear. Perhaps they're afraid of people who are not linear thinking like themselves.
Yeah, that could very well.
Which is again framing by me, reframing. I'm conscious of that. But what I found is that it's against in neuroscience that people who tend to be neurotypical, let's frame it carefully, have a tendency to perceive top down. And if you perceive top down, you refer to your cognitive schemes and what you perceive in your social environment, which is the majority. So they are in a bubble, a majority bubble, but still a bubble. And that's why they are scared of anyone who's not in the bubble. That's how I see it. And we are out of this bubble, perhaps in a different bubble. I don't know.
And maybe
but we know the difference between linear thinking and various ways of other thinking.
Yeah. And we're held up against or with people that only see the linear thinking. But I mean, so one thing I keep saying is the future is neurodiverse. With AI coming in, AI is linear. It can only think from what's in front of it, right? And what has been fed. And I think even if we feed a non-linear thinking, it's not possible because it has so many aspects to it, which includes our very well-developed sensory system that we feel and smell and see and hear things that people with a narrower sensory system would not pick up, and that is impacting our non-linear. So actually, if we really want to separate humans from the AI, the nonlinear thinkers should be the ones that can really show that. That's in my own little head. I have decided. I even asked AI themselves, and they agreed, or it agreed, or whatever. So interesting to keep in mind. Victoria, thank you, Stephen.
Was just going to say, well, it all boils down to self-expression, doesn't it? And being able to know who you are. And I think that is one of the challenges when you're getting late diagnosis for a lot of people now at particular ages. They've had to be someone for for a vast majority of their lifespan to then have to sit and figure out, well, who actually am I? And was that me all along? Or is this traits of a condition that's impacted me? And I think it's about being brave and courageous. And as much as I really would like to think, I'd love the world to be more accepting and understanding and give everyone a sense of belonging. It's not the world we live in, and we have to kind of adapt to that. But I think the more people start to realize who they are and, if they get diagnosis or not and understand that they are neurodivergent, the more people talk about it. It's the same with any form of inequity or stereotyping. We've got to bust the myths, and we've got to talk the truth and just be ourselves, really. And hopefully that will start to address it over time. It's just going to take a bit of time.
It will take time, and it will take all of us speaking up, as Sabina also said. We've got to be out there and just go, you might think this, but I'm now showing you that. And then try to keep influencing in that way, even with the connection between generations. I think we've spent a lot of time making the whole woke thing with younger people an issue, when in fact I love it. I love young people, how they think, how they talk. I have reverse mentors. I have under 30-year-old mentors I've had for the last 16 years on an ongoing basis. Once a month for 12 months we talk. They can put on their CV that they have mentored me for a year, which apparently helps them with jobs. So it's a two-way thing. We reach out, and actually I find the younger generations incredibly perceptive to that. At ION, we have a reverse mentoring group on LinkedIn, and you can download a guide as to how to do it. But literally, if you ask a young person, would you mentor me in how you think and how you perceive the world and how you're going to move forward, and you learn from them, and then that will always be a two-way. But actually, if we do that, if we can go, this generation will connect the older and the younger generations, because the middle people are not doing it. They're just busy feeling threatened by what the young people want to change. Like in Nepal, Gen Z took down the government. This is the kind of things that's coming with the very young generations, and the middle group are feeling threatened. Maybe the older group, I'm sort of coming towards the end maybe of my working life, or maybe I'll work forever, but I can do things in a more flexible way. And so I'm not threatened by the young people. I want to lift them and empower them to shape that future that's for them, right? The future belongs to them. If we all do that, one, it keeps us younger, it keeps us fresher, it keeps us aware of where the young people are going. So I think if we could all take anything away from today, go out, find someone that can mentor you who's under 30-year-old, and you will see the marvels they will come up with. So that's just one thing that I think we can all easily do, and it costs nothing. Sabina, do you have any thoughts on this?
I'm reticent to speak because I don't have a diagnosis, and,
Sure.
and that is the way you ask the question. However, I honestly feel that it's important to say that neurodiversity is not a problem to be fixed. It is a different way of a brain working to be understood and to be valued. And I think, when it comes to problem solving, as a group, the more diverse the group is, the more likely you are to come up with different solutions. Yes, sameness might be efficient, but it also can be limited. And I think the more diverse a group you have, the more creativity and innovation can come from that. I also think you may end up with more realistic decision making. I just see parallels. I've done a lot of work with pharma companies on patient engagement, and like when you talk about universities deciding what they're going to research and getting funding for it without ever asking the patient what's the issue that you need researched. And I remember, I'll never forget, my very first kind of EU conference was around Parkinson's disease, and all the researchers were looking at how to manage the tremor, etc. And when patients were eventually asked, what came back was, I'd actually really just like to be able to have sex again. Can we work on that? No, but do you know what I mean?
I
It was
know.
literally nobody had asked what
No.
mattered
Yeah.
to
And
them.
unfortunately, some of the medication is making that problematic.
You
Yeah.
know,
But that should be taken into account with the medication for Parkinson to make sure it doesn't destroy people's sex life, because that's
exactly.
at an age, right? So it's definitely that's a
But it is that whole othering,
yeah, it's
making decisions on behalf of what you perceive something to be. And
totally.
that's why I didn't want to comment on that one, because I don't have that lived experience. But it's important for me to, because fascinated and interested in the human condition, and that takes all. So I am fascinated to learn what
Thank
it,
you.
it feels like, or what the experience is.
Thank you so much. That kind of feeds into sort of the next thing I'd like to talk about. So this is my own thinking around that. So for neurodivergent adults who spend decades masking or surviving unnoticed, what emotional impact might it have in later life in invisibility? And my thinking is, well, are we not more prepared for that because actually we've been excluded or ignored or, whatever most of our life? Would we be more actually resilient in a way towards old age, or would it be worse? I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm very comfortable in my own space. I'm so comfortable I have to be careful not becoming a hermit, because that could easily happen. I have so many things that I do inside my own head, and it's been like that all my life. As a child, it was even worse. The older I get, I think it could be more like when I was a child. And I literally have a whole world that I'm very happy to live in on my own. And maybe, and I don't know if that research has been done, maybe many of us feel that way, and it's not making it worse for us to not have so much social content. Do you see what I mean, all of you? I mean, I don't know, because I'm thinking, oh, I've got my dogs. I mean, I've got my dogs around me now. That's great, right? So just putting that out there, it's just my own thoughts. I have nothing behind it. So Victoria, do you want to start with this one, and then
I mean, mine's more of a question and a fear because I'm not quite there yet. But I suppose, like you, I've always been in my own little world to an extent, and being able to do that. But I do worry, and I might be wrong for worrying about this type of stuff, but I struggle to articulate some of the big transitions that have happened recently with regards to, my female health. I know I seem young, but that there's, medical reasons behind that. I've struggled to articulate these changes already, and I do wonder, as I get older, is that going to become even more difficult? And how do I, give these examples to things that are impacting me to get the support or the treatment I need at whatever that may be. So that does play on my mind, and the isolation bit does, because, I suppose it's a numbers game. And when we're younger, there's a lot more people you can be friends with, even though I find it very difficult to form those relationships. And I've had quite a small circle. As I get older, is that going to be even harder, because there's going to be less fish in the sea that understand me, that I can, belong to those groups with. So as I will say, more questions and probably not answers, but
that's when you go to the younger groups and say, do you want to be my mentor? And have this group of different people. I mean, it's hard. I find it hard as well. Friendships were always difficult for me to have them and sustain them, because of expectations that I couldn't always live up to, because again, I do spend a lot of time just thinking inside my own head. So yeah, thank you for that, Victoria. Sabina, is that the hand from before?
Yes, no, that's my hand from now. Because the thing is, I'm nodding along when you're explaining. You could be describing my life. Do you
Yeah,
know, I am perfectly happy in my old world. You said your dogs. I have 3 dogs. I live in a beautiful place. I rarely leave where I live,
yeah,
because I love it so much.
yeah,
When I go out, I give talks, but I will be exhausted after this,
yeah.
because when I do it, I give it my all. I have been so lucky across my life in terms of friends, because I would struggle to Oh, I don't like being committed that I have to go out next Thursday night at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
I just don't like the feeling of that. And I have really, what has happened across my lifespan is I'm a friend is coming up to stay with me next Tuesday. We haven't actually physically seen each other for 2 years, but we've been friends since we were 19, and we will be always friends, and we will never lose our friendship because one of us isn't up to seeing the other. So I think I've gathered people around me who are happy. They don't require me to always show up and to
Yeah.
always be there. So I mean, I kind of identify similarities. It's like I said in my talk. I think there's a misconception, a general misconception, that to counteract social isolation, you must be extremely sociable and engage with lots of people. That is not true.
Yeah.
The definition of loneliness is when there is a mismatch between what you need and what you have socially.
Yeah.
My husband needs lots of people. He's a salesperson. I couldn't do what he does. He goes out, he's talking to people all day, every day. He would be lost without it. That would absolutely kill me. So
Yeah.
we have you. The thing is to just find your niche, what
Yeah.
you like Amanda did with her job. It is, and I think that does apply to other people as well as neurodivergent people. We're so busy satisfying societal expectations,
Yeah.
we lose touch with who we really are. And I often say to people, I think in one of my books, I say, sit down and make an appointment with yourself. Just give yourself some time and actually try and figure out what really matters to me. Why am I doing
Right.
that? Is it because it's pleasing my father? Or is it because I really want to do it? You've only got one life, so make that appointment and make changes, you know?
I think that's
100%.
an important point because there was someone commenting in the chat earlier that, oh, I'm not that social and I find it hard. So it's really important point to say it's not actually about how many people you see, it's what are your needs and are they met?
Yes,
So
that's it.
so it's measuring for ourselves what is our need? Do I feel I see enough people? I mean, when I go out and speak, I'm exhausted for a week after if I then have to go
Mm,
down and everybody wants to talk to me after, although I
yeah.
love it, but I'm still exhausted, right? Amanda, you're coming in.
I'm so relating to you both so much about the speaking and being exhausted afterwards. It's like you can collapse because, like you said, Sabine, I put everything into it. When I'm talking, I'm like a Baptist preacher for crying out loud. So, but I wanted to also add to the point that absolutely there's nothing wrong with isolation if that's what feeds your soul. Some people are just introverted and that's just the way it is, and that's super cool. But I do always tell people, because I mentor a lot of neurodivergent people, and I always say the older you get, the more you should be hanging out with and socializing with neurodivergent people, because if we don't get trophies for masking, there's no trophies for the best masker in the whole world. And so we need that outlet to be around people where we don't have to mask, people who just get our experiences right away and get our jokes about the experience and whatever else. That is so important, I think. And it's never been easier. Even if you have a community that's just online of neurodivergent people, like, it's never been easier for us to find each other. And I think that can't be underestimated, really.
I think, which was also one of the key reasons we started Institute of Neurodiversity, because like when I got diagnosed, there was nobody to reach out to. There's no way I could speak to people like me, and the charities only cared about the children. And so I thought we got to have a global community. And I have to say, my happy place is always with the people within the Institute of Neurodiversity, because there's no judgment. It's so easy to relate to each other. We are just who we are, and it doesn't matter how we turn up, right? It doesn't matter if, I didn't have a shower today or whatever. Do you know what I mean? There's no judgment. And I love that so much because I find it so hard to fit in when you have to be in a certain way, when I have to try to wear my pearls to see if that makes me fit in more. But actually, people know, I think they can feel in our vibrations or whatever, they can feel that we're different, no matter how much we mask. I actually think masking doesn't work because we vibrate differently and people can tell even without, I mean, I got bullied incessantly as a child. Why? I mean, I didn't know, I didn't speak pretty much till I was 12. I still got beaten up on the way down home on the bus, and I had no clue why. I think they could simply tell I was just different. And I think that follows us for life. So I'd rather than be with people that are different like me and actually feel, plus our allies who loves the differences too, right? So yeah, thank you so much for that, Amanda. Stephen, do you have any thoughts about this, whether we are actually resilient because we've been built up? Sorry, that was my dog. I'm so sorry.
Oh. Well, no special thought. I'm just listening, and I just recognize what you're telling. It's like about my life. I also have been bullied for, and I never understood why. Well, now I'm not bullied, but still, between not being bullied and between being accepted, there's a whole world, and there's another world between being accepted and by being fully included.
And appreciated.
That's another gap.
Yeah.
And I'm used to these gaps. And in my turn, I invite people just to come over and see me and see how I live, how I look upon the world, and to exchange glasses. I can't do anything else. I can't just answer non-acceptance by non-acceptance. That would just continue the duality.
That's true.
The answer to duality may be non-duality, which is extremely difficult, but also relaxing at every time you manage.
That's true. Thank you so much for that. So I can see Mark Kelly has raised his hand, but I'm not quite sure what to do about the raised hands, to be honest. I'm so sorry. Mark, is it possible for you to write in the chat what you might want to say, and then I will read it out? Because I tried to press raised hands before, and then they all just disappeared and didn't know where to find them again, because my technology is not very... Oh, not intentional. Fair enough, Mark. Okay. Now, another thing that anyone else wants to comment on this one, are we okay to go to the next one? And I don't know where you are on the next one. It's a bit another one of a sort of brainstorm of mine. But so I have noticed that many neurodivergent people are highly sensitive to medication. So if we get the same amount of medication that a typical person would get, we react stronger to it. And that is something that I haven't seen being researched at all, but that's actually something that can potentially be life-threatening for us. And as we get older, from about 68, it came down from 7 to 68, all of us start having some kind of illness on average. So what happens then when we need to have some kind of medication, but that people don't know that a lesser amount would be better for us? I don't know, Sabina, have you heard anything about that, or Victoria within the health? But I think it's very
not come across that from a research point of view, but I have heard people feel like that, and I have personally experienced it myself, where it's taken a long time to adjust to different medications, but that I couldn't really comment.
See, in the chats, when I have Alice saying, so sensitive to medication, I've been so gaslit in medical environments when sharing my experience of that. It's something we really, really, really need to look at.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's across the board. As I said again, I I don't know of any data in that regard. I mean, we've even very little data on medication and females. Do you know what I mean in terms of the research? You know, they wouldn't even use female rats because they have pesky fluctuating hormones. Do you know? And they all interact with medications. I mean, I know myself. I mean, I have a paradoxical reaction to sedatives. So if I'm given a sedative, I talk more than I even talk now, and I talk more and I talk more, and then they give me so much that then I'm out of it for like a week afterwards. So I think, generally speaking, because research, and particularly medical research, has been so blinkered and done on males, mainly white males, we know very little of how it really impacts of people who are different from just white males.
Average white male, because they will go, everything is gone by the modeled human that they have created some time ago, right? So everything is against that.
But in my own profession of psychology, all the original research was done on males. And that's why women are less than or more than, or,
Right.
because the norm was supposed to be that.
Yeah.
Whereas the only thing I can say is if research um, includes, instead of doing research on males and females, if you want a norm, you gather everyone together. So the only thing I would say is if research has been done on a general population with diverse backgrounds, not specifically saying neurodiversity, on the based on figures, you
Yeah.
will have some neurodiverse people within
Totally.
that group.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, I think if we do more research that is less narrow on specific groups and actually more general, then we can pull out, is there patterns that emerge? Like, why are these 3% of people responding differently? Okay, what is it about those 3% of people
Yeah.
that's different? And you may just
Yeah.
that they're neurodivergent, or that they all have migraine, or they have a particular gene. So I think that to me, that's kind of the answer rather than. I definitely, from hearing the previous study, we need much more research around neurodiversity and interactions with various things. But I do think that just research in general needs to have a broader reach. That's where longitudinal studies are
Yeah.
very beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you follow them over years. I mean, so for me, the sensitivity to medication has been a lifelong. I've never had any really, and I had 3 cesareans. My painkillers was paracetamol and ibuprofen, and they refused to just give me that. So they kept giving me other things. Just, I don't want anything else. This is fine. It covers my pain, and I never
Wow.
use it normally. And they just would not listen. So they gave me morphine, which I reacted really, really badly to. And then they did it again and again, even when I told them. And so the thing is, it's like refuse. Therefore, we need research when they refuse to listen. And I saw in the chat as well, other people have had the same experience. So I think it's something we at Iron will take away and try to find someone who will do some research around that, because we have us that we can put up, and then we need to find a group of people who are not neurodivergent, although that can sometimes be difficult to find because people think they're not when they sometimes are. But I think it's something that needs to be taken into account, because it's happening too much, and it will happen more as we get older. That's the problem. We
Yes.
get more
Could I,
medical.
Charlotte, it'd be good
could
to
I,
talk to you about. Oh, sorry.
All right.
It's
Yeah.
Amanda, you jump in. I'll talk to you
I
about
was
that
just,
second.
Amanda, sorry. Yeah, Amanda.
yeah, I was just going to say, just real quick to add a tip, because everything you guys are saying is so completely true. And I've seen a lot of stuff in the chat about gaslighting, medical gaslighting, and I think a lot of us get it. This is just a personal thing. Things might be different. Your results might be different, but a doctor told me, I brought this to a doctor who I know personally, and they gave me some advice that has worked 100% of the time. And that is, when I'm trying to advocate for myself with a doctor and they refuse to listen, or they're playing down the neurodivergence or whatever other thing I've got, I always ask them to put it in writing. So if they deny, something, like, no, we're not going to do that, or we're not going to try that, or then I go, okay, that's fine. Can you please put that in writing? Can you just send an email right now saying
Right.
that? And then it's amazing how quickly they listen. And then they change their tune. It's just a little tip for people.
Because you create an audit trail that can be used in court. That's right. Great advice. We use it in business all the time. Yes. Because it just really shows you where they will kind of stop and go, "Oh, okay, maybe not." I had the issue around because my smelling is a bit crazy. So I smell when people are ill. And I thought everybody could smell that because it's so obvious to me. It's a very different smell, right? And so when my children were young, I took them to the doctor because I knew they were ill, because they smelled different and the doctor didn't believe me. So I had to go away again and wait until they were more ill so the doctor could tell and measure it every time, every time. So those are, again, what when I get older and maybe I'm surrounded by more people who are ill and I know they're ill and nobody wants to check it, right? So, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Joy said they would believe a dog trained to do so. That's right. I have one dog who's gets seizures, and before he gets it, my other dog behaves differently and knows that it's coming on. So
That is absolutely fascinating about the sense of smell. It's an underestimated sense, and it's a brain thing. And I have chronic migraine, very, very severe. I inject myself medications constant, and it's, people think it's just a headache. It's way more than that. But my super sensitivity is smell. Now, I can't do anything fancy like you, but if there is a smell that triggers,
Migraine.
it
Yeah.
is instant. And my
Yeah.
husband used to say to me, he'd be doing, I'd say, "Oh, what did you just clean with? Or what did you just put with?" And I mean, I literally could vomit,
Yeah.
vomit,
I know.
instant headache. And I made a radio documentary actually about it. Because, I think there's a little bit of invisibility around migraine, much like there is neurodiversity. We have a migraine brain. Our brain operates
Yeah.
in a very different way to everybody else's.
Yeah.
And it's like you're putting it on, oh, it's like that couldn't be. Even my own husband, who loves me dearly, like it couldn't be that bad. And so when I did the radio documentary about it and about different people's experiences, I
It
brought
is.
a doctor on who said, "Well, your olfactory, it's instant. It goes straight to there." But that's fascinating about the smelling. But it's just you've a heightened sense of smell. I think so. My son, who is somewhat divergent, who is a GP. I mean, he developed incredible oral skills. His handwriting, was appalling. He was way behind in written language, but never in, really able to read beyond his years, etc. But he developed, and I think that could be something, skills that were not working the way they should be. He developed other ones, like blind people have incredible sense of smell,
Right.
so or touch. So your sense of smell may have become a way for you to interpret the world, and so it's extra
Yeah.
special, extra
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Thank you.
think, yeah, no, but I think it's fascinating. Sorry.
Thank you so much, all of you. I have actually managed to misinterpret the time, and we were supposed to finish 20 past, and now it's half past. And then we're supposed to have 10 minutes break. So now we're going to say thank you so much, all of you, for your engagement. It's been amazing. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
It's been
All the
such a
for having
participants
us.
being
Thanks
so
so much.
engaged. We're just
thank.
going to take 5 minutes break, and then 4:35 come back again for the rest of the event. Thank you so much, all of you, and all the participating participants. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.